Hey everyone, Seth Campbell here with a new Segue Says podcast. It has been a long time. I'm so sorry it's been so long since the last episode. I have just been incredibly busy. I've taken on a bunch of new responsibilities for my job, and then I've had a bunch of freelance work that I've been doing as well. So unfortunately, I kind of had to move the Segue podcast down on the list of priorities in a way that I never wanted to, but it had to be done just so I could manage everything. But in that time, I've been cooking up a bunch of new segues that I'm really happy with, and this episode is going to feature one of them. It's Octopus's Garden by the Beatles and Blue Sky by the Allman Brothers Band. Now, these are two, fairly upbeat, happy songs that I've been playing for a number of years, but it was only recently that I came up with the idea for the segue, and I'll tell that story in a little bit. But first, as always, let's take a look at the songs. Both of them are in the key of E major. They're roughly the same tempo. They have a vague swing sixteenths feel to them, but it's not heavily emphasized. And both of them are held together by some great guitar riffs. Octopus's Garden, of course, is on Abbey Road, and it's one of the silliest, most family-friendly songs, up there, I'd say, with Yellow Submarine that the Beatles have. And it's funny because Abbey Road, when that album was made, obviously the Beatles weren't getting along very well, and there were all these fights between John and Paul for whose material to use, and George was feeling left out of it. And then Ringo, who, would rarely be, a singer, presenting his own songs, comes in with this, which is just this cheerful, goofy song about an octopus having a garden at the bottom of the ocean. And octopuses, octopi, octopodes, I've seen debate on what the actual proper plural is, but they're creepy animals, so it wouldn't surprise me if they make gardens. But they sound really friendly in this song. So it starts off with these guitar riffs that I'm going to do my best to imitate on the piano here. I'd like to be under the sea in an octopus's garden in the shade. He'd let us in, knows where we've been, in his octopus's garden in the shade. We would sing and dance around because we know we can't be found. I'd like to be under the sea in an octopus's garden in the shade. And I actually sang the wrong sort of B section there. It should have been, I asked my friends to come and see that octopus's garden with me. So anyway, as you can hear, it's cute, it's fun, it's funny, it's very joyful, and musically it's fairly simple. The verse is almost kind of like a limerick in the sense you've got, I guess not really, but it's an A-A-B-A, so you've got this A part, which is E, C sharp minor, A, B, and that repeats, and then the B part, not to be confused with the B chord, is this little rhyming couplet, which is why I was sort of thinking of it like a limerick. Just C sharp minor, A, B, and then the last is similar to the A part. It's E, C sharp minor, A, B, E, and that sort of wraps it up full circle. So that's a verse, and it's a verse refrain form rather than a verse chorus. So that's Octopus's Garden, and I've known that song since I was a very little kid listening to a cassette tape of Abbey Road. Blue Sky by the Allman Brothers Band is another song that I've known for a while. My dad is a big Allman Brothers fan, so listening to Live at the Fillmore record and the album this comes from, Eat a Peach. I heard these albums a lot as a kid, so I knew of the Allman Brothers and I knew of this song, but it really kind of caught my attention actually when The Brew, my mentor's old band, which is now, you can find the music under Blue Fungus Brew, which is a long story involving naming rights, but at a show they did, Salisbury Beach, 2010, for the Sand and Sea Festival. They have a song called Chance Reaching, and the sort of the bridge section of that is similarly this sort of upbeat E major. And in the middle of this jam, because they would be a jam rock band, they played Blue Sky. And I was like, okay, this is a fun jam. I like this. And so it put the song into context for me, that it really brought it to my attention. And so that's what inspired me to learn it back then. So the Allman Brothers Band, for those who don't know, were sort of the southern rock answer to the San Francisco jam band scene, particularly bands like the Grateful Dead. From San Francisco, the whole California hippie jam scene inspired, sort of not really a response per se, but an equivalent, I guess, in the southern rock fields. And you had bands like Leonard Skinner, with their 15-minute Freebird jams, and then I think probably more so in the jam field because it was a little more rock, not much country sound, would be the Allman Brothers Band. There would be a big band that have lots of guitars, that have two drummers, much like the Grateful Dead. And the album that this song is on, Eat a Peach, was actually the last one that Duane Allman, one of the Allman Brothers that the band was named after, he passed away during the making of. So this is the last album that he's on, and he's playing guitar all over this track, along with Dickie Betts, who is also playing guitars. And like a lot of Allman Brothers songs, this song is built around sort of guitar melodies played by multiple guitars, so they sound really cool, harmonies on guitar lines. And I can't really replicate that very well solo piano, but you should check it out. So again, it's, happy E major. And it starts on this guitar riff. Then has this little E, D, A, E. So that's the intro, and then here's two verses and a chorus, because the verses are really short. Walk along the river, sweet lullaby, it just keeps on flowing, you don't worry about where it's going. And then there's a double guitar line. Don't fly, Mr. Bluebird, I'm just walking down the road. Early morning sunshine tells me all I need to know. This is just E, B, A for the whole verse. But then there's another guitar. Sort of double riff, double guitar. And then the chorus. You're my blue sky, you're my sunny day. Lord, you know it makes me high when you turn your love my way. Turn your love my way. And then there's just a long jam just going between E and A. And that's the thing about an Allman Brothers band is, they would have tracks, particularly on live albums. You look at the Live at the Fillmore record. I think it's there's a version of Mountain Jam that's a half an hour long. So obviously in live context, this could build into all sorts of crazy jams and go to all sorts of wonderful places, which is why the Brew would do it in the middle of one of their jams. But as you can hear, much like Octopus's Garden, it's largely very diatonic. So the chords are all in the key of E major, with the exception of that D during that little intro turnaround. But the chorus is B, A, E, A, B, A, E, A, F sharp minor, and I like to throw Um, but so both these songs, they're pretty simple musically. And so they have that in common as well. So this is another segue that can work both ways. I personally like to start with Octopus's Garden because that's how I came up with it. And the reason I came up with it is, obviously over the course of the COVID pandemic, I haven't really been able to play live at piano bars, which had been my primary source of performance before. As you can see, I'm still here in my parents' barn, where I've been kind of sheltering during the pandemic. So if I couldn't do live shows, I decided to do live streams. Much like the setup with this podcast, I just play and sing. But if I knew friends of mine would be watching, if I knew they were going to watch, I'd send them my repertoire list ahead of time and say, pick out any song that you see on here and I'll play it for you. And a friend of mine requested Octopus's Garden, and it so happened that I was planning on doing Blue Sky during that live stream. I'd been practicing it. And so that was the first time those two songs had been kind of put next to each other in my head. And I was thinking, I wonder if this could work. And I think it did. So, as you can hear, the opening riff of Blue Sky just starts right on this E, and it has this pentatonic guitar riff. And so that just, it comes from just a simple E, and luckily, as we know, the verse refrain of Octopus's Garden ends on an E. Well, in fact, the last verse, if you want to be technical about it, has a tag ending that I really like. We would be so happy, you and me. No one there to tell us what to do. I'd like to be under the sea in an octopus's garden with you. And it goes to C sharp minor here. In an octopus's garden with you. In an octopus's garden with you. And then it hits an E and ends on another guitar riff. But rather than have that guitar riff, which is the end of Octopus's Garden, you can just replace it with the intro riff of Blue Sky. So, an octopus's garden with you. And usually by the time you get here, if there's anybody who goes, well, I imagine this would be the case since I haven't been able to do this for an in-person audience yet, but that's kind of that moment of epiphany that I've talked about before, where the people in the audience who know the Allman Brothers Band are like, there you go. I see what he's doing here. And then for going back the other way, Blue Sky actually ends the same way that it starts. It comes out of the last chorus. Lord, you know it makes me high when you turn your love my way. Turn your love my way. There's a couple different ways to do this. If you do Blue Sky first, what I would recommend doing is, rather than repeating the intro riff of Blue Sky, do the opening riff of Octopus's Garden there. So that would be, turn your love my way. There, but you get the idea. So you would start Octopus's Garden there. If you're going back into Octopus's Garden for just sort of a tag ending, you'd probably do the whole third verse again. So for that, I would just I would repeat the intro riff of Blue Sky. But I would then take out this E, D, A, E at the end. I would just go right to repeating the final verse of Octopus's Garden. We would shout and swim about the coral that lies beneath the waves. Oh, what joy for every girl and boy, knowing they're happy and they're safe. We would be so happy, you and me, no one there to tell us what to do. I'd like to be under the sea in an octopus's garden with you. In an octopus's garden with you. In an octopus's garden with you. And end it that way. That's how I do it. But again, the whole point of these videos is that I offer an idea and you take it and come up with the way that it'll work best for you, whether you're playing solo, playing with a band, however you want to do it. So with that, hopefully you've enjoyed, hopefully you've learned something, and I'll see you in the next episode.